And it's 1:30 p.m. Time to get updates from the world of business. Welcome to Business Incorporated. Here's what we have for you on the program today. 1,000 Nigerians have lost $10,000 each due to fake jobs in the United Kingdom. And then we take a look at Nigeria's poultry industry, with maize surging 76% in 2023. Relief for Kenya as the World Bank lends them $250 million. Good afternoon, I'm Ini John Mekwa. Let's give you the details to those stories and a whole lot more. We begin with the market. Unfortunately, we see that the NGX has lost that very slim gains that it closed with yesterday at intraday. It's just, in the negative 0.00%. Right there. It should move for the close of trade one way or the other. But it's still at 72,401. 0.38. South Africa is still positive following yesterday's positive sentiment. 0.16% is less than yesterday, but at least it's still in the green. 74,419.23. In other parts of the continent, we look at Egypt and see that it's also negative in the red, 0.17%. At 25,291.66. Kenya closed deeply in the red, very deep in the red, losing its 100 points right there, not even in 1,000, now at 91.19 after dropping 0.90% on Monday. Moving to the Middle East now, it's a recovery for most of them, unlike what we had yesterday. Abu Dhabi has recovered 0.13% at intraday, 9,489.27. Dubai marginally up 0.02% at intraday, 3,991.37. Other regions of that part of the world, Saudi Arabia is also positive, 0.15%. Qatar beats them all, 2.71% at 10,142.71. Now let's head over to London. One of the stories we told you about, the International Organization for Migration, IOM, I said that no fewer than 1,000 Nigerians have been deceived with exciting job opportunities in the United Kingdom. Well, Lawrence de Boyk, who is the chief missions of IOM, made the disclosure at a news conference here in Nigeria, the Federal Capital Territory. According to him, some of the victims lose huge amounts of money, as much as $10,000 each, while attempting to get their foreign job in the United Kingdom. He said that the victims will be issued with fake employment letters which allow them to get the visa into the UK, but the organizations will fail to recognize those letters. He also reveals that victims, some of them are currently stranded in the United Kingdom over lack of means to return even back home. I guess that's the one they say, Japa and Japada. But at home, somebody will give us a flesh to that. We have our eyes and ears in London. Juliana Olainka joins us now to give us some more realistic picture to this. Hi, Juliana. Good afternoon. Well, this is not good. It only warns Nigerians of being too desperate in spite of what's going on in the country back here.
Good afternoon, Ini. Thank you. You've given a really good summary of actually what de Boyk said, who, as you said, is the representative of the International Organization of Migration to Nigeria. And of course, the IOM is a leading UN agency that looks at what's happening with migration across the world. And I think many of us are familiar with what de Boyk said in Abuja on Monday. But of course, when you put facts and figures to a rumor, it just shows the true extent of it. And that is that so many Nigerians who, as you say, are, looking for better opportunities abroad. Of course, they're not seeing that the economic opportunities in Nigeria are favorable to them, which is why we're seeing so many people flocking out of the borders. And unfortunately, what we have seen over the past definitely think 18 to 24 months, is that there are so many people on social media posing as experts. They've been able to create pretty lucrative sideline roles, offering advice on social media, copying and pasting things that they see on the British government website, while sprinkling in a little bit of misinformation and fake news. And to the extreme, which is what was explained by the IOM yesterday, is that they're forging fake employment letters, and people are paying up to $10,000. They get into the country, lo and behold, there is no role. And that is very, very worrying, particularly as we know James Cleverly, the Home Secretary, announced a couple of weeks ago new visa rules, really strict rules now, monitoring the amount of dependents that are coming in some circumstances. On some visas, you cannot bring your dependent with you. There are also some suggestions that perhaps if you are somebody here on a student visa, if you don't make or reach a certain threshold in your results, then you'll also be sent back. That is still to be confirmed, so please don't be alarmed by that news. But it's all part of this wider story about Jakba, as you said, and the concerns with it. And Ini, I think, perhaps this is something we'll talk about in more depth in 2024. But even those that are coming into the United Kingdom with proper jobs, they're finding that the reality of that role is not exactly what they signed up for. So very, very concerning. The great thing is that IOM did say on Monday that of the 260,000 requests they had last year, yes, 260,000 Nigerians got in touch with IOM last year asking to help with their migration experience, that they're on top of it. They're well-staffed, well-funded, of course, so they have the infrastructure and the systems to help people. But please, 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 social media is great, as we all know, we all love it and use it, but it can be an Achilles heel. So anybody watching who does want to leave, do not rely on social media influencers, the social media gatekeepers who you think are living abroad, giving you all of this advice, telling you to click here or pay this and then we can get you this. Don't do it. It's just not worth it. I know the routes to the UK are limited, but there are legal routes. So yes, I would take and adhere to the advice of the IOM and just make sure you are doing your due diligence and you don't get that on YouTube or X.
Yeah, and I guess it's also important to let people know that there's no green or free lunch anywhere, not in the UK, not in the US, not in Europe. You go everywhere, you work. It's not that easy out there. But still talking about the UK, there's a report that shows that 40% of adults there are planning to give at least one used item as Christmas gift. Does this take away the excitement of gift sharing?
Well, certainly not when I was growing up, Inni. Anything under the tree was good. And, for many of us, sometimes it would be something that belonged to your older brother or sister. But look, this is quite an interesting survey, actually. And in fact, on Channel's Business Global, our show that we produce from London, when it goes out on Friday, you get to have a glimpse of what people are shopping, because we spoke to a few Christmas shoppers yesterday. And I think there are two factors for this. The first one is the obvious one, which is cost of living. People are really still struggling, as you said, and we have to repeat it, Inni. Britain, the global north, is not the land of milk and honey. There is no free lunch here. It is tough. I know things are tougher in certain places, but it can be quite tough here, as people realise. And the cost of living crisis is, embedded in the economy at the moment. So people are cutting back. It does feel like it's busy, but we're not sure if people are just going out window shopping or if people are actually spending money at the till. So I think, if you've got something, in behind your sofa, maybe you haven't opened it. A lot of people re-gift. I'm sure many of us are guilty of that. But then there is also another really important factor to this report, Inni, and that's environmental sustainability. We're just coming off the back of COP. We know that, we're warming the planet to a point of almost decay. And there are a lot of people that are thinking, come on, constant buying, constantly wrapping presents and giving cards that are going to go in the bin, wrapping paper that's going to go in the bin. What is the point when you can recycle? So it's quite interesting. But I think the predominant reason why people are regifting or giving second-hand gifts is because, quite frankly, they cannot afford it. And that's fair. But then also it's consumerism gone absolutely crazy, people are just constantly buying, and many of that stuff ends up in the bin on Boxing Day, as anyone who's a parent knows. So yeah, really, really interesting. But yeah, I think consumer habits are changing, and the environment's got a lot to do with that, Ini.
Yeah, well, facing the reality that is, I'm sure some Nigerians will also go back, to behind their couch and see what they can get and rewrap and share with their family and friends. But I hope they don't do that.
I will accept it.
And I hope they don't do that, with our shares and equities.
That's right. Moving swiftly on to that, the FTSE All-Share is actually in tip-top shape. As we are on the eve of inflation data. We get inflation data tomorrow. I know central banks across the world have been busy. We also had some disappointing news from Superdry, which is an English-based retailer. They've issued a profit warning, but despite their shares plummeting 34%, and that wasn't enough to drag down the index, which is in tip-top shape. As I said, the all-share is up 0.22%. FTSE 100 up by 0.02%, and the FTSE 250, the domestic market, that's up by more than 0.5% at intraday. In the currencies market, the British pound is trading up against the US dollar by 0.40%, also up against the euro by 0.29%, and up against the Japanese yen by triple-digit figures, 1.81%, Ini.
All right, Juliana, thank you so much as we count down to Christmas.
Yeah, I can't wait. Thanks, Ini.
All right, now let's head to Berlin, where an historic deal between Kenya and the European Union was signed yesterday in Nairobi. The agreement will boost trade and cooperation between the two economies, and it comes after years of negotiations. We have joining us to give us the details and reactions to it. Emily joins us right there from Berlin. Hi, Emily. Good afternoon. So tell us the details of this landmark agreement.
Thank you for having me, Ini. First, I want to start off with saying that the discussions that eventually led to this agreement started around a decade ago and will have pretty significant implications for both the EU and Kenyan economies. So that's why it's being hailed as such a historic event. Now, the deal is going to strengthen the relationship between Kenya and the EU economically, but also politically. On the economic side, it essentially gives Kenya duty-free status on many of the goods it exports into the bloc. It also has special safeguards for agricultural and food security, and it includes binding provisions on climate and environmental protection, on labor rights, and on gender equality. It even includes a transparent dispute resolution mechanism. So there's been a lot that's been considered in this deal.
Sounds like both countries have a whole lot to gain from this.
Well, it has economic benefits for both, but perhaps slightly more so for Kenya. The EU is one of Kenya's biggest export markets and its second largest trading partner. In 2022, bilateral trade between the two countries amounted to 3.3 billion euros. Compared to 2018, that's an increase of 27%. Now, the main products that Kenya exports to the EU are horticultural products like tea, coffee, flowers, and fruits and vegetables, all which account for 21% of the overall exports and total 1.2 billion euros. So giving Kenyan farmers duty-free access to their largest export market is going to give the economy a big boost, and it's going to create a number of jobs in different sectors. So the deal is also going to help Kenyan farmers in meeting EU standards. When the agreement was first drafted in June, there were concerns that it might pave the way for European products to flood the Kenyan market and make it difficult for local industries to survive there. So the deal now gives Kenya the ability to protect its own economy by being able to trigger certain safeguards in the case that there are unforeseen increases of imports from the EU. And Kenya also buys machinery, pharmaceuticals, and other chemicals from the bloc, totaling just over 2 billion euros annually. And for the EU, the benefits are largely going to be political.
All right, but let's look at the markets now and see how investors are moving at this time.
Investors are awaiting the Eurozone's final November inflation numbers today, and they're expecting inflation numbers for the US and the UK later this week. But equities have mostly risen, for example, European shares in technology and leisure. And in China, data for November is showing that domestic demand continues to step down. Retail sales growth have almost halved, and most major housing indicators are deteriorating. And in a widely expected move, the Bank of Japan decided to maintain its ultra-loose monetary settings, which have weakened the yen. And finally, investors are keeping an eye on oil prices, which have ticked down after a number of firms said they're going to avoid the Red Sea after attacks by Houthi rebels on cargo ships traveling through there.
All right, thank you so much, Emily, for that update. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll stay on the African continent right here on Business Incorporated. To stay with us. You're welcome back to watching Business Incorporated right here on Channels Television. Well, let's talk a little bit about the business of Christmas. One of the items that's become regular at this time is frozen chicken, at least right here in Nigeria. And we see that the price of frozen chicken in the country has been up by 25% in the past 6 months, from about 2,800 for a kilogram to about 3,500, depending on where you're shopping. Now, what are the factors responsible for this? Is it just demand increase, or are there other factors? Well, joining us to have this conversation is Halima Didiron, analyst with Financial Derivatives Company, joins us from Victoria Island. Hi, Halima, good afternoon. What's driving the price of frozen chicken this fast?
Well, good afternoon, Amy. Thanks for having me. As you rightly said, apart from the demand, which is way higher than the supply, the total supply that we have in the country, we also have the issue of lack of expertise when it comes to biosecurity. And what does that mean? It means that the management to be able to curb the spread of virus and diseases in the poultry sector. And this is really affecting not only the volume, but the quality of chicken that is being produced in the country. But apart from that, we would also see that the value chain and the production chain of chicken is very large, from the day-old to the vaccination to the feeding and all. We'll see that all those processes are really increased when it comes to cost, and this is filtering into the price of chicken as a whole. But beyond that, we'll see that the CBN just lifted a ban on some items, of which poultry products and chicken is one of them. And because of this, importers are really not having enough access to forex in the official market, and so they would have to go to the autonomous market to get this forex in order to import, which will also be factored into the price of chicken, because you can now see that at the parallel market, the naira has depreciated to as low as 1,230 as at yesterday. So all this is also affecting the surge that we are seeing in the price of chicken presently in Nigeria.
And you know, one of the factors, because on Business Morning earlier today, Ladi Williams spoke to the president or the chairman, the Ogun State chairman of PAN, and he talked about one of their major challenges, which is, apart from funding, the feed, the production feed. And we've seen that the price of maize has gone up about 75% or more this year alone. So the issue of feed obviously also feeds into this. Do we see a solution in the horizon?
Well, there is a solution. And the first thing is to look into the quality of feed that is being given to the birds is very important, because it will determine not only the volume, but the quality of the chicken that will be given to consumers to consume. That's number one. Another thing is collaboration with poultry industry and processing industry in order to be able to access loan, because in the situation whereby we have glut in the supply of chicken, they will be able to process it to frozen chicken, and that costs a lot it's very capital intensive in terms of cold chain and in terms of blast freeze that needs to keep the chicken in order for it to be edible till the point of sale. So this collaboration too could help in improving the production of chicken in Nigeria. And not only that, if you look at Ethiopia and South Africa, I will say that one of the things that is helping them is collaboration and also opportunities in terms of government policies that is really helping and is benefiting farmers. If this is also looked into in Nigeria, it will help a long way. Just recently, they lifted the ban, as I've said earlier. This will reduce the competitiveness of the local chicken producer. No doubt about that, because for them the cost is way higher than those countries that are importing into Nigeria, because they have access to subsidy and so many waivers when it comes to agricultural practices in those countries. So these three things will be able to at least boost production of chicken in Nigeria: collaboration, good quality feed, and also beneficial government policies.
All right, Halima, thank you so much. Unfortunately, it looks like we'll still have to deal with this high cost of frozen food this Christmas. It's too, more like a long-term solution. Well, Halima Adedinro is analyst with Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and talking about that conversation this morning, the Poultry Association of Nigeria is asking for government intervention as the harsh macroeconomic headwinds remain a threat to their existence. The Ogun State chairman of the association, Engineer Idowu Ashenuga, believes that the budgetary allocation for agriculture is minimal and insufficient. Engineer Ashenuga was a guest on Business Morning today.
In the first quarter that brought us to our knees completely, because most of my members became charity organizations. They were giving out eggs for free, something that was costing them so much to produce. And of course, the effect of that, as we're just about to recover from it, then came the subsidy removal. And I can recall very vividly around July, August this year, one of our key inputs, which is maize, went as high as 700,000 naira per ton. The honest truth is, at 700,000 naira per ton for maize, it is just impossible for you to do poultry business. And most of our members had to downsize. For me personally, I have to reduce 60% of my stock, lay off my workers, and of course I have bank facility that I need to pay. And the honest truth is, you cannot even project anymore. You can't say, okay, this is what 2024 is going to look like. And our inability to even plan or forecast or even prepare cash flow projections that can be reliable is making a complete mockery of the entire poultry business. I can see some good moves by this new administration, but the critical thing they need to look at and focus on is food. Because to budget 262 billion for 223 million people, of which only 252 billion of that value is for capital expenditure, means it's either government is clueless, insensitive, or completely out of tune with reality.
More money for food is what Engineer Ashenuga is asking for there. Now let's move from Nigeria to Rwanda, where the country, through the Development Bank of Rwanda and Germany's KfW Development Bank, signed a grant agreement worth £15.6 million. That's approximately 20 billion Rwanda currency, to establish a credit facility to support small and medium enterprises in export business. It's dubbed Export Credit Guarantee Facility, EGCF. It's a new partial credit guarantee. It aims to support employment creation in both growing and export-oriented small and medium-sized enterprises in Rwanda. The World Bank Group has advanced 38.4 billion shillings, that's about $250 million, to Kenya to strengthen transparency in public finance management and enhance revenue mobilization. The funding is expected to serve as an estimated 485 ministries, departments, and agencies with 240,000 registered firms and 18 million citizens who use government e-services. According to the World Bank Country Director for Kenya, Mr. Keith Hansen, the government of Kenya needs higher revenue mobilization to operationalize its development agenda, while efficiency in spending will be necessary for the revenue that's mobilized to deliver its intended purpose. And that's the much we can take on Business Incorporated today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Another edition comes up tomorrow. Do join me then, 1:30 p.m. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Enjoy the rest of your day.